we record this. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Thanks a lot for the reminder. Please let us know if you agree with this. We would like to record the session in order to be able to disseminate it later, and so it can rest as a material for everyone to use later on. If you would prefer your image not to appear in the recording, you can keep your camera closed. And yes, just for you to know that we will be recording. In fact, I think we have just started the recording. So thank you very much. So moving on to the next slide, please. I can't see the next slide. I don't know if it's not. Is it me or
you need to sync?
Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is the agenda for today's webinar. We will start with a brief opening from our side with an introduction on what BlueMissionMed is doing in terms of support. And then we will set a bit the problem on financing for local innovation ecosystem from our side. And then we will go into 3 sessions. First one touching upon the main challenges and opportunities in financing innovation. Then we will go on innovative and impact financing models. And thirdly, we will have an exchange with local and regional institutional actors and an open discussion with you on any questions you may have throughout the session. Okay, I wanted to start my intervention by reminding everyone on the context in which BlueMissionMed operates. Of course, BlueMissionMed operates in the broader context of the mission to restore our ocean and waters, which is helping achieve its implementation, particularly in the Mediterranean basin. Missions are a very specific approach to innovation with very concrete characteristics when you compare them to other innovation processes. So firstly, missions are a type of innovation that is time-bound. It sets a concrete deadline. In the case of our mission, the deadline set is 2030. Secondly, missions set very concrete targets. So often they are ambitious and complex societal goals. In the case of our mission Ocean, we have these 3 goals. Firstly, to protect and restore marine and freshwater ecosystem and biodiversity with some related concrete KPIs or targets. Secondly, to prevent and eliminate pollution of our oceans, seas, and waters. And thirdly, to make the blue economy carbon neutral and circular. So they are time-bound, they set concrete targets. And thirdly, a key aspect of missions is that they emphasize the need for the engagement of different societal actors. So ensuring close collaboration between governments, the public sector, the private sector, researchers, and other stakeholders in order to pool resources, to share the knowledge, and coordinate actions in this context. So these are the main characteristics of mission innovation. And here, of course, funding is a key aspect of the mission innovation approach. It is, of course, crucial for developing, for scaling innovative solutions that are required to achieve its very ambitious and transformative goals. And given the specificities of this mission approach, in this webinar, we are looking at a specific kind of funding which is suited to achieve such goals. There is a recent paper which was elaborated in the context of a mutual learning exercise, which was done across all EU missions, which precisely builds on this topic of mission-oriented funding. And it argues that, in general, mission-oriented funding must consider how innovation or transformational change happens in practice. And it acknowledges that innovation itself is the result of an uncertain, a cumulative, and collective process. It is uncertain regarding the extent to which the innovations that are promoted are feasible, whether they are viable commercially, and whether they are acceptable from a social point of view. They are also cumulative as they build on past knowledge and experiences, and collective in the sense that they depend on capabilities that no single actor has individually. So these three characteristics of mission innovation imply that finance must be patient and sustained over time. If we see, for instance, that investors, normally private investors, are prioritizing more short-term returns, for instance, then entrepreneurs and companies will be discouraged from developing this sort of fundamentally uncertain and highly innovative projects. And even if one of those projects actually succeeds, the returns will only come in the longer term. So this is a specific characteristic of this type of innovation we're looking at, and what it requires in terms of financing. And these characteristics result in the end in a tendency for the public sector to end up financing riskier technologies, and there is a gap in private investment, which is usually worse precisely due to the mission's long-term and ambitious societal goals, as some of the solutions have what we call public good characteristics, no? Which means their benefits cannot be privately appropriated. So in the end, profit-seeking investors may not have the incentives to fund the creation of mission innovation, and in the end, public sector takes on most of the load. But this paper also argues importantly that, of course, the role of the public sector is key, but alone it cannot provide the scale of funding required to achieve the mission goal. So there's a little bit of a dilemma here that we wanted to go deeper today in, and particularly look at ways in which this funding gap can be addressed in the Mediterranean and how we can actively push for crowding in private investments. So this graph here shows an ideal type representation of the division of labor of private investment across the innovation ladder. So starting in a development stage, so the prototyping, the early validation, etc., we see that the role of private funding is typically limited precisely because of this high uncertainty. And private capital here in this stage mainly comes from corporate research and development and strategic investments. Then in the next phase, the market creation, the private capital plays a much stronger role with the prospect of higher returns. And in this stage, venture capital and equity funds can scale up the most promising firms. And lastly, in the diffusion stage, we see that innovation is proven already and commercially viable, so private capital usually dominates the financing. However, all of this is true for innovations in markets with high profitability prospects, so mainly in sectors like tech, like pharma, like energy, etc. But in the context of our mission, the traction from the public sector, both EU and national, as we were saying, is fundamental. So it has a leveraging role that we need to possibly exploit better. So public funding in this first phase of development can help a lot in de-risking early stage projects, creating the base for future innovations. And it can do so with several tools for attracting private capital. So through grants, in the case of the mission, this is evident. The mission is mainly supported by EU grants funded by the Horizon program. But then there's also other opportunities to bring in the private sector, like through incubators and accelerators, which are often public-private partnerships that provide infrastructure, they provide mentoring, seed funding, etc. Then in the market creation stage, so once the technology is validated, we see that there is often like this valley of death, and public support here can help create initial demands with, for instance, tools like innovation procurement, pre-commercial procurement that we will speak about in depth later on, public-private partnerships and blended finance. And finally, in the diffusion stage, when the innovation is actually technically viable and commercially proven, the public sector can also play a role, no? By providing infrastructure investment, by providing this public procurement at a larger scale, by providing export finance and trade facilitation tools, etc., etc. So before we dive into the actual discussion on how both public and private funding can be accelerated and applied in practice, we wanted to remind how BlueMissionMed, our project, fits into this funding landscape. So as a coordination and support action, BlueMissionMed is tasked with creating enabling conditions for this collaboration and this broad investment mobilization to happen. And it does so by supporting the creation of innovation ecosystems. So this means that on the one hand, BlueMissionMed supports on the innovation supply side, so working directly with the innovators by helping them develop capacity. We provide with training, we help them match make, we ensure that they have the right skills, communication wise, but also they know how to connect with different actors in different environments, including financial actors, whether they are early stage or whether they are more commercially proven and viable. And on the other hand, and importantly, BlueMissionMed, by creating a sort of governance structure, it helps articulate the innovation demand. So working directly with potential adopters, which includes national and regional authorities who may want to take on board these innovations. We do so through a network of national hubs, but then also, of course, other types of stakeholders like, I don't know, like boards, et cetera, et cetera. So well, without going too much in detail, the process of support started early this year with a call for expressions of interest, which had over 100 requests, both from the innovation supply side, so innovators, startups, entrepreneurs, etc., but also innovation demand, so regions or national authorities that wanted to that had some needs in order to be addressed by potential innovations. And we have defined a pathway of support, which is adapted to different levels of TRL and also different needs for adoption. So I will leave it here now, and I will hand it over to my colleague Marta Ergueta, who is part of the support program team, and she will be providing an overview of the support that has been provided so far, mainly on the supply side, so for the innovators. So over to you, Marta.
Thank you. Thank you, Irene. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Irene mentioned, I'll briefly walk you through what the Blue Mission Med support program has achieved so far. Next slide, please. So, as Irene mentioned, we received over 130 applications in our expression of interest. Of those, 18 solutions presented in our community building webinars. I believe most of you connected today, so thanks for joining us as well. Of those 18 solutions, 11 received tailored support, and we will briefly touch base on what kind of support was requested, what were the needs that we mainly identified, and so on. As you can see in these figures, 55% of the solutions that received this tailored advice were at early stage, whereas the rest were at more advanced stage. And we were able to group these solutions depending on the category, on the topic they were addressing. Next slide, please. So support needs varied by maturity level, as we just mentioned. So early stage solutions were mainly seeking for mentoring and pitching guidance, whereas more advanced ones needed help with prototyping and on-site testing. Often, this is one of the major barriers that was identified, this need to find infrastructure to do this testing and the prototyping. So this is something that we found quite a gap there. And then other common needs included visibility and having a better understanding of EU regulations. Our portfolio was diverse with a strong presence of Spain, followed by France and Italy, but also including non-EU countries such as Turkey, Egypt, etc. Next slides, please. From the expression of interest, as we just mentioned, we identified 3 main categories to group our solution providers per topic. So these webinars included bio-based innovation, smart innovations for wastewater and energy, and monitoring, detecting, and collecting solutions. On the bio-based innovation, this included solution crafting materials for fisheries and ports, such as ropes or gear, which were made from biological sources, reducing in that way the marine harm. Moving on to the smart solutions, These were aiming at reducing, recycling, and upcycling marine plastic waste, and even some of them turning it into energy. And then the monitoring, detecting, and collecting solutions were focusing on identifying and collecting litter, including microplastics and pollutants in both rivers and oceans. And to do so, they were using technological instruments such as drones or citizen science tools. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we did a bit of an analysis of what the main needs were reported across all these solutions, and this is also what brings us today, no? So one of the needs was on accessing finance. Investment and funding was the second most important need that the solution providers that were part of this program were asking for more information, advice, etc. Most of the teams were also led by researchers or engineers, so there might be limited business and market skills in some teams, which may make it more difficult to access certain funds, which may require complex applications. Then there are also needs on communication and visibility, which shows a gap that persists despite strong technological assets. There are also several early stage projects ready for testing, but lacking access to pilot infrastructures, like we mentioned earlier. And then there's a need for stronger collaboration across borders, especially with municipality treatment plants. Next slide, please. So we analyzed briefly what were the challenges mentioned in this expression of interest, where we were also asking the solutions what challenges were related to funding too. No? So there are differences between the challenges faced by solution seekers and those faced by solution providers. So regional authorities, for example, face unstable budgets, administrative hurdles, and often need external support. So they are looking for scalable and cost-effective solutions. Meanwhile, innovators pointed out that securing funding is particularly challenging when they lack stable income or sufficient resources. So this is making it quite hard to meet the financial requirements during application processes. Many solutions are also facing high operating costs, especially those using a high demand of energy, which has been rising in the past years. And additionally, there's a need for substantial upfront capital, which makes grant funding especially valuable. This highlights the need to connect innovators with public sector seekers and investors and funding agencies through different mechanisms, which is why we decided to build these two webinars, which with this masterclass that we are launching here today on access to finance, and also one that we will briefly mention at the end on innovative procurement. So having said that, I give the floor to my colleague Mateo, which will briefly walk us through the persisting challenges. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So you've seen that Irene put this, set the scene on the mission objective, but also on more kind of conceptual and principles on the financing of innovation, and then we see through Marta some of the concrete challenges that we emerge. I think I'm trying in 3-4 minutes to go through some reflection that can beef up the discussion with our colleagues and experts in the next session. So Andrea, please, next slide. So we talk a lot, and we've been addressing element of technology readiness level, TRL, and that of course is important to scale up solution. I mean, we're talking technological, of course, solution, but to some extent also other type of solution. They need to come to certain type of level to be ready to be used. But then indeed the challenge kind of start at the end of the TRL, not ends, because then you have all the discussion that we have been explaining a little bit with Marta, but all this discussion on investment readiness, which is really about how to structure the idea in a more commercial manner, how to engage a market. Could also be not profit in a sense, could also be how to really understand anyway how we want to approach the potential user of our solution? What is the structure of this operation? How we find money to support our work, etc., which is really the core of our discussion today. So next slide. So this is all really, not only about technology or solution per se, but how to structure the process organization to be able to make this solution a reality, to engage with the clients or users and evolve through time. For this, you need money. So regardless that these are commercially viable solution or solution of other kind, money is required to do all of these. And the problem, next slide, is that usually, next slide, Andrea, sorry. Usually the traditional aspects for that, besides grant, is looking at venture capital, which is important, was mentioned by Irene in the very beginning. The problem with venture capital is that usually looks at ticket size, technically speaking. So the amount of money requested for solution provider, let's say, which for venture capital are companies largely, is very large. So they are interested in looking at high-level return. Of course, they look at impact in a more broader term, but the basic is still the bottom line of financial return. And to do so, they also tend to favor providing capital to large-scale operation, and therefore the tickets, beside notable exception of Catapult Ocean, but usually venture capital look at a solution asking for millions, few millions, 500 is really small. But what we're experiencing with our solution, and we know, is about 100 to 100K, maybe 300K to do pilot, to step ahead, to make a market analysis. And it's very difficult to find that amount of money, which stops the progression of solution. Next slide. I mean, of course, there are a number of different actors beyond the venture capital that really blend focus on impact and financial return. This is just an example we will discuss with our speakers later on, but just to expand the framework provided also by Irene in the beginning, there's a number of other actors that we are considering to engage with BlueMissionMed to really access money that help, maybe small scale money that help impact. Next slide. Of course, another element is also the extent to which public procurement and public organization, public authorities could finance innovation for their own purpose. This is a whole thing that we will discuss in the next masterclass, but just to say that also public money is not simply grant, can also be used in a more specific way to trigger innovation. Next slide. But and I'm basically done. But the key here is really like, if you want to look more broadly, we are really interested in scaling up innovation ecosystem. So we are really interested in bridging the gap between supply and demand of innovation, solution provider and solution seekers, which we do in BlueMissionMed as well. But there's a bridging dilemma there because we're really lacking the financial support, which again is not a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's a sum of even like small tickets, but it needs to be there systematically, both from public investment and private investment, impact investment. It needs to be there systematically to allow for continual trial and error at the local level and scaling up the solutions that are more fit for local needs. So next and last slide on my side. But then we're facing a challenge, which is like quadruple at least challenge, because you have the market, which so is still fragmented. It's still SMEs that have difficulties to access finance. It's still relatively invisible to the big capital. There's a financial sector that is not so much appealed by impact yet. They're not very familiar with the whole area of discussion in the mission, and so it still requires more understanding. The public sector could play a role, but it's still quite fragmented in policy silos, and it's still a little far from being able to use the public money to scale up ecosystem innovation. We will discuss in the next masterclass. And of course, there's a community of local actors or even local communities that could contribute, but they are also largely in need for finance. So all of these actors are still relatively fragmented, and we need to bring it all together. So that's why, and I'm done here. Apologies, we're a couple of minutes late. Next slide. We really want to hear from a number of experience across the Med, but also beyond. And we want to, because a lot of those things that we will like to have exist. So there are a number of example in impact-driven support. There are a number of investments used for blue economy and beyond. There are different financial tools, even very new tools that exist, and there are approach to have the social and systemic investment, maybe in other area, not necessarily in the maritime domain, but in other domains. And so we want to briefly have an overview of all of this, and then we want to discuss with all the people online, of course, but also trigger the idea of our colleagues working in regions to see how this could benefit their work in supporting the territory for scaling up innovation. So without much ado, and apologies, we're a few minutes late, but I think it's okay. I think we want to start this round of presentation, and I ask all colleagues to try to stay brief as they can, and I will really start with Mauro from WWF. WWF have a very strong range of experience in supporting finance and coastal resilience. So Mauro, please, the floor is yours, and thanks for sharing your view.
Thank you, Matteo. And hi, everyone. Shall I share my screen? And
please, yeah, it's easy, I think.
Can you hear me properly?
Yes. Fantastic.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, picture. Wonderful. So thank you so much for the invite. But as Matteo said, I'm Mauro Randone. I work for WWF Mediterranean, in particular for the Mediterranean Marine Initiative, which is a regional program that essentially brings together all the marine teams of WWF in the Med. We started working on sustainable blue economy finance a while back, almost in 2015. The idea is that, of course, the sustainable blue economy is particularly important also for WWF because it represents a model, an economic development model that can support let's say, and preserve the ecosystems of the region, and sort of combine also with the provision of livelihoods for the coastal communities that depend on these ecosystems. I wanted to share very briefly what we do on blue economy finance in particular. Particularly we work with coastal communities all over the region and globally. In the Mediterranean now we have 30 co-management pilots involving small-scale fisheries, and we work with local authorities. We bring together scientists, local communities. It's the co-management model based on the cofradías of Spain. So a very, very successful model that we exported essentially with local partners all over the region because it's one of those models that makes most sense. We also looked into bankable project opportunities, bankable nature-based solutions. I will mention them a little bit in the next slide. I wanted to start with something similar to what Matteo just presented. A few years back, we carried out a survey involving around 40 blue economy and finance actors in the region, and the objective was to try to identify what were the barriers to sustainable blue economy finance in the Mediterranean region. We asked them essentially what they thought the main barriers were. And in a very simple sort of table, I noted down these 5 key barriers, and you can see a lot of alignments concurrence with what has been said so far. Perhaps one element that wasn't fully mentioned is the fact that there are unsupportive policies and regulations, and I'll sort of dig into that in a moment. But the point is that at the time in which we carried out the survey, for example, the Maritime Spatial Planning directives were not yet implemented, and directives that are key, for example, for the providing sort of and de-risking sustainable blue economy finance investments. The other elements are, for example, the second point that you can see here, so the lack of shared sustainability guidance and metrics. How do you evaluate if sustainable blue economy investment is actually sustainable or not? This has never been very clear. Now there is better guidance. Now there is for example, the guidance produced by UNEP Financial Initiative. So more elements are there, but we're not really quite there yet. Another major issue was the lack of bankable projects we mentioned before. Many of the projects we identified, and according to the feedback of these financial actors, the projects were either too small or not proven to be actually financially, let's say, viable or sustainable. The other element is that sustainable blue economy investments were considered to be high risks compared to sort of traditional sort of blue economy investments, and this is definitely still an issue. It's safer, still perceived to be safer to go for investments in traditional sectors. And then, as a final point, many thought that there was a clear lack of skills from blue economy actors in the region. So essentially, blue economy stakeholders were not trained to work on sustainable blue economy aspects. And so these are the key elements. Perhaps, and this is the final slides. I know that I have 5 minutes, so I try to summarize everything in very briefly, but I wanted to focus on 4 key recommendations. So number one, and it's linked to the policy gap that I mentioned before. So there is a need to really adopt and implement these coherent policies. Maritime spatial planning. In some countries, we're still we are starting, to think about sustainable blue economy plans. These are really essential, elements that will direct finance towards activities that can really advance conservation, but also support inclusive growth. Also, incentives, really, there is still a major gap here. The second point is that we need to close the finance, the seed finance gap. Again, this was mentioned before. A lot of scattered small pilot projects. Ticket size is too small. So here, blended finance instruments to direct investments are key, and also that we have the key role of the impact investors that can really make a difference. But still, this is not happening. So we did the survey 3-4 years ago. It's still an issue now. This is a key point. The third point is a key point. I really want to emphasize this. There are new opportunities upcoming. We have the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. We have the Nature Restoration Law, particularly on the European side. I think this can really leverage the private sector funding into sustainable blue economy projects, and nature restoration and bankable nature-based solutions. And this brings me to my final point. There's more interest into nature-based solutions projects. These are projects that are scalable, financially attractive. Of course, there is a lack of understanding of the ecosystem services that many of these projects can provide. Can give you a very clear example to close. Seagrass meadows, the restoration of seagrass meadows can really lead to coastal protection, carbon sequestration, supporting fish nurseries, contributing to biodiversity, and therefore tourism for the diving sector. I named a few, but just gives you an idea of the amount of money that is behind all of that. And really, there is not many initiatives that are supporting this. I'm closing. You have my email address on top of the presentation. just to say that we are developing a nature-based solution, blue nature-based solution incubator, and in theory it's going to be launched next year, early next year. But yeah, today I just wanted to sort of announce it because we are working on it, and soon it's going to be publicly available.
Thanks
Hope
a
it
lot.
wasn't
Thanks,
too
Mauro.
long. Thank you.
It's fantastic, to the point, and also, of course, we will follow up on the incubator and through the year, and also I think these 4 points are quite good, because I think with all the next speaker we really touch upon. I mean, we touch upon now in this session on acceleration of technology, but then the next session is really more on all impact financing and new innovative ways. And I think towards the end, Stefano could also reflect on what they do nicely in Emilia-Romagna for this coherence of policy framework at the local level. So that's fantastic. So without much ado, as they say, I move to Lavinia. I think Lavinia is online, right, with Pharos.
Yes.
She is accelerating innovative solution in Italy. So Lavinia, the floor is yours, and please, try to stay within 5 minutes if you can.
Okay, I will share my screen. Can you hear me correctly?
Yes, we also see you now, so it's great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for this organization of this event. I think we will touch very similar points between all the different contributions, so it will be interesting to see what we are seeing common and different. I will bring my experience in Pharos Accelerator. So I'm the portfolio manager of Pharos, representing a Cube, that is a social innovator and incubator that promotes or manages the Pharos. Pharos is part of the National Accelerator Network and is the one dedicated to promoting startups in the blue economy. I will be very quick in just giving an overview of some numbers that we presented. So we're actually in our 4th batch, and these are just some numbers of what we have achieved in these years. These are the 3 main pillars and activities that we do in Pharos. So an 4-month acceleration program. We co-develop open innovation projects between the startups and the partners and the investment. So I will focus on this last pillar, just to share our investment approach. So we start with an initial ticket, a first ticket that I think is aligned to what you were saying before, of this lack of small scale tickets and small scale opportunities for startups. So this is meant to be a first opportunity for startups to fund their pilots, experiment and validate their technologies. And obviously we know that for this kind of sector, it is not something that can really change completely the life of a startup, because it's a small ticket, but it's meant to be for a first boost, initial boost. So for startups that have to probably get maybe a higher TRL, and it is as a safe. So for simplicity and speed, it is an equity instrument that is quite appreciated, also for the simplicity of the investment. After this, what is planned is a follow-on commitment. So we try to create also network opportunities for startups to actually meet possible investors that are interested at the end of the program to enter in the cap table of the startups. And in this case, there is another potential follow-on up to 400,000. So this is a second phase where it is thought that startups can manage to actually raise a real round that can be from 700 to 1 million, and it's from pilot to scale. So it should be what can actually give the possibility for the startup to scale their technology. Obviously, this is not simple, and it is not the something that is the path for every startup, because it's complicated. But it's what we try to offer and build for each startups. And what we have learned in this kind of path of investment path for startups, I tried to summarize it in these 3 points. So firstly, the importance of building ties. It's something that can be trivial, but actually we have seen that both for startups and for us, Pharos, as a facilitator, it's crucial to build strong connections in the pilots, in the collaborations that have been constructed to actually grow and try and keep these collaborations to foster more energy as the startup growth, as the startup changes kind of needs. What we have seen most challenging in this is actually to keep aligned all the different speeds, priorities, and also dynamics that institutions, corporates, and startups have, especially in the pilot projects. It's very difficult to actually, on our side, be sure that each part is in some way satisfying their needs, but it's something that we are actually every time trying and pursuing to do. Second kind of takeaway that we have is obviously the mixing investment sources. I think it's something that also in some way Mauro has just shared. So early tickets we have seen that are fundamental to actually de-risk pilots and manage to validate initially the technology. But after that, it can not only be equity for 2 reasons, mainly because there are a lot of opportunities of blended finance that can be grants, regional and national funds, public and private capital. So what we try to do for startups is to push for a fundraising strategy that doesn't include a dilution that is too early. So the first priority is to actually create traction, create results, and then diluting after some results are taken. Last, lessons learned that also in this case is something that we have seen in first place for us and also for startups, is that the importance of being present in the ecosystem. So actually the territories are important to be in and to build trust with different actors. And this is the only way to actually attract capital, attract opportunities, and have a growth that is impact driven together with all the actors of the ecosystem. So being present virtually is important, but actually being present in person is something fundamental that is not easy in today, but is something that has to be given importance. And so this is our few.
Thank you very much, Lavinia. Actually, very interesting, and we're already kind of developing some of the concept that we introduced earlier on. And I think there's some requests for sharing the contact of the accelerator so people can join. And I think an extra element before moving to Christina is that also you work with Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, which is kind of the national development bank, if I might say, of Italy. So you also have this connection between national public kind of funds and work with that. So very interesting. So maybe then we move to another experience on the other side of the med. So Christina, very impact. You do similar experience in a different context. Let us know what are your insights, and please, stay in 5 minutes. So we're moving ahead quite well with time.
Of course, and thank you for the invitation to be present and show you what we have been doing at Very Impact. Let me just put it on presentation mode.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm the managing director of Very Impact, and interestingly, Very Impact started from an EU-funded project by DG Mare to actually address what Mauro shared is a huge issue, the lack of shared sustainability guidance and metrics. So through a contract back in 2018 by Digimare. We developed the first decision-making tool, an ESG tool for investments in the blue economy, with the support of WWF and UNEP-FI. And from then on, we have included all sectors of the economy. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be releasing the third version of the ESG sustainability tool. So I will be talking about the blue economy and investments, metrics, tools, financial models. So as we know, SDG 14, which is life below water, remains the most underfunded SDG of all, for reasons that Mauro and Lavinia and the previous speakers have already explained. So we understand that the blue economy is a driver of sustainability, of job creation and resilience, especially in the Mediterranean. Yet investments are underfunded due to risk perception and fragmented data. And our goal as a company, as a commercial company now, is to clarify the metrics, the tools, and how you can leverage finance. So in terms of investment in the blue economy, there are amazing opportunities, both for established sectors, but also from emerging ones. So aquaculture, renewables, biotech, carbon capturing, but the traditional financing models do not fit. We need more impact-oriented solutions. We see that the EU mission Restore Our Oceans and Waters is an enabler, a catalyst for financing. And why metrics matter? Well, investors, banks require measurable and comparable outcomes. The environmental metrics that need to be present in any business plan now that is submitted to investors or to banks, that is CO2 avoided, biodiversity restored, but also the social aspect of it, jobs creations, inclusivity, cultural heritage, and the economic ones, resilience, cost savings. Of course, there's the policy alignment, especially in the European Union context. CSRD, I think Mauro referred to it, the EU taxonomy, SDG implementation, TNFD. And what we have from the very beginning of our establishment as a company, what we have done is to provide tools both for sustainability reporting, for metrics, but also to actually convince investors and banks that the blue economy is bankable. So what we have done is we have created a tool that is an AI-enabled ESG and non-financial risk platform. We do double materiality assessments aligned to the CSRD, the EU taxonomy, and TNFD. And for investments, through our tool, we have scenario modeling. So what will happen in 5 years? What is the forecast? We do investment readiness diagnostics, and we also have a lot of stakeholder engagement modules, because again, when we talk especially for the blue economy, the communities, the social part of it is very important. So I will give you a study, a case study example that we did for the regional government of Madeira in Portugal for the Salvagens Islands. For those of you who don't know, these islands are the Atlantic Galapagos, a cluster of islands in the middle of the Atlantic that are not inhabited. So the government of Madeira wanted to see what are the ecosystem values that arise from this and how can they actually exploit that. So what we did for them, we measured the ecosystem values in conjunction with Forum Oceano, and we actually presented the findings at the UN Ocean Conference back in Lisbon in 2022 and the Economist World Ocean Summit in Madeira. So what we found was that the ecosystem valuation can become quantified natural capital, and it actually showed that biodiversity values can attract financing through green bonds, blue bonds. This is an example of a local government, but imagine this being transferred to any kind of entity. It could be at the national level, it could be at the European level, but it could also be at the startup level. So the tools assessment are, of course, blue carbon pricing and biodiversity credits. We see blue carbon and carbon pricing emerging as a huge opportunity field. The natural capital accounting and ecosystem valuation system, Mauro referred to that very briefly, very important. And now we have all the digital tools. The Very Impact tool is one tool to do compliance, to do simulators, to do forecasting. And for us, as Very Impact, we see all the sustainability reporting, all the forecasting that we do as a huge advantage for ecosystem values to turn into an investment decision, both for investors but also for banks. And some of the financing models that we have seen over the years in the blue economy sector, of course, you have traditional funding, and Matteo referred to that, loans, grants, subsidies. But what we see emerging are blue bonds, sustainability-linked loans, anything that has to do with impact, that is, impact funds, philanthropic foundations that are targeting the SDGs, blended finance models, that is public-private, to do risk financing, some investments, especially when we talk about blue economy, huge infrastructure investments, and the lighthouse model that we see, especially through the mission, how to scale pilots for larger projects. Of course, there are many challenges and gaps. SMEs, startups struggle to meet due diligence, compliance because of lack of capacity. There's a lack of standardized ecosystem metrics. This is true. What we have done in Very Impact is we have included all market accepted frameworks and models. We see funding disparities between regions, especially in the south of Europe. And again, the private sector is very hesitant. They need risk-sharing mechanisms with governments, with the EIB, for instance. And some conclusions is that when we look towards the future, we need metrics, we need tools to de-risk and attract investments. The case studies that we have through the Selvagens Islands, through the actual commercial partners that we have at Very Impact, prove the feasibility of the models. We have to start scaling pilots into replicable models, for instance, all over the Mediterranean, and collaboration is very important. So if I would take one key takeaway from my presentation is that metrics translate into ecological value, into the ecosystem values, and these have a huge investment potential. And with the new EU Ocean Pact, we see a lot of focus towards the blue economy. And if you need more information, feel free to touch base with me, visit our website, but also our Knowledge Hub, Very Impact Academy. We have a specific course on the blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I hope I was short and sweet.
Yeah, no, that's all fantastic, and I mean we have enough time, I think, to catch up. And so we build the scenarios of challenges, and we're now looking at opportunities, and also we see that it's important to translate the potentials of ecosystem investment into more in a language that can be understood by investors. But I think now we want to go a bit further also even and look at more areas of innovative solution, innovative areas, and an example of what has been done also to go beyond the more traditional investment. So I mean, first we start with Camille from Blue Seeds, and really like looking at experience that you had in supporting small scale fisheries, for example, in having understanding even before accessing to finance. Maybe the finance you were looking for is a little bit more traditional still, but the approach is still new in trying to bring in information. So please, Camille, the floor, virtual floor at the screen is yours. Thanks again, Christina and all.
Thank you very much, Matteo. Thank you all. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, all fine. Okay. If you can put it in full screen, it's even better.
Okay. And then I can see just a second. Here we go. All right. So I work for the Blue Seeds company. The logo you can see here is Blue Move because we operate different funds with a different legal structure. I'm going to tell you all about it. First, we've seen different challenges and barriers, but what we haven't said yet is that the European Commission wants to do well. They want to fund sustainability And so there is willingness from them to do something good. We can read it also in most of the policies. Unfortunately, it's not going all the way to the final beneficiaries, but we have willingness. There is money available. So now we need to go get it. And I'm going to give you an example of the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, the EMFAF or EMFF for the previous cycle of funding, which didn't include aquaculture, hence the lack of A in these funds. And based on a study conducted by Blue Seeds and WWF Mediterranean Marine Initiative, again, Mauro, hello, we found, we identified the reasons why small-scale fishers could not access this type of funding despite the policies being adapted to them. So for them, the complexity, the fact that it's application online, and sometimes they don't even have an email address was a big barrier. And also the fact that these grants are paid at the very end of the application cycle means that you have to bring upfront cash, upfront capital, pay for all your expenses, invoices, and you receive the grants at the very end. And banks are not willing to support this kind of projects, although it changes a little bit. I can also share examples from Portugal. Banks are not willing to support people such as small-scale fishers who have low income. So what we bring with the Blue Move Fund is technical support. So consultants who are close to the fishing communities will go and support the fishers from the idea to the application process to the very end of the repayment request to get the European grant. But we also have this fund to pre-finance the grants. So we bring loans or guarantees. So there is no gap in cash flow with the Blue Move Fund. Blue Move is deployed in Portugal, Croatia, Greece, and Cyprus at different levels. I can share a few key figures from the proof of concept. In 2022, calls for applications were issued and 37 fishers were eligible. Actually, most of the other applications were not complete. So barrier number one again is here. So fishers from Croatia and Italy were supported with consultants who were paid. I think it was 3 or 4 consultants in total who were paid a total of 43,000 euros. These consultants helped the 37 fishers to obtain more than 2 million euros in European grants, which means that in this support, less than 2% were invested in the total amount that was raised. So that's interesting because here we bring this idea of paying for support to get funding. 2% is quite low, and the target population here, small-scale fishers, has a vulnerable income. But accepting to pay a little bit for funding can be a good idea. Not too much, but still it can help. So we were not able to support everyone, and this is why Blue Move was, we continued with Blue Move. And I'm going to give you a second example in Cyprus, where here the challenges are more in the eligibility rules of the European funding. We were a bit disappointed by one call that was about sustainable fishing gear, but in the end, only acoustic deterrent devices to keep dolphins away were eligible. And also the banking system, from bad experience with Russian accounts, is very, very locked. So we had to find other solutions to bring the pre-financing and the grants. But again, the money is here, and we never give up, and you shouldn't do. That's my key messages in 5 minutes and 40 seconds.
Thank you very much. You were quicker than me to react. So no, it's great, and I think also, I mean, the point that you need locally grounded intermediation to really allow for local communities and local solution to access to finance, being there, investors, or even public grant. And this is, I think, one of the main arguments that might be emerging, and really that there's a need to have local people that understand local needs and can intermediate with different languages, different know-how and skills. So it's a fantastic piece of evidence for that. Thank you very much, Camille. And I think now we also try to move a bit more experimental, no, and look at more innovative, out of the box experience, but very grounded as well, and something that is already going on. So we enrich the number of experience we present. So Valerie, I think the video is yours, and looking at funding the future. Sounds an ambitious title, but I've seen the slides and are quite interesting. So please, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much, and hopefully this is working well. So apologies, I thought I had 7 minutes, so I'm gonna have to rush a little bit or either cut some things out. So
go ahead, don't worry,
Matteo,
we can adjust.
Okay, great, thank you. So as Matteo was saying, this is much more exploratory. So first of all, I am the Blue Mission Atlantic and Arctic CSA, so I have quite a large area to cover. And from experience of what we've been trialing in this area for Objective 1 of the Mission Ocean, which is about marine restoration, we've come across a lot of challenges. So this made me think of kind of where should we head to next? What can we push out a little bit more that we did try? So, so the title is Funding the Future, Big Visions, Local Power. So financing mechanisms for restoration. And here I'm really exploring imaginative grassroots funding models, and I've applied it to restoring Norway's kelp forests as just an example. And the premise of all of this is based on that water is a commons, it's shared, it's life-sustaining, and yet undervalued resource. It's always attached to an economic incentive as well, as opposed to a kinship. We are also, as humans, bodies of water. And so I think we need to build that care of non-human into all of these models as well. And we need to adopt more of the collective stewardship duty. So as I mentioned, I'm going to kind of cover Norway's vanishing kelp forest. These are the 4 key issues facing kelp. There's a lot more, but we don't have time. But basically, yeah, these are our major issues here. So the financial seascape, is quite vast, as the previous presentations have covered. We've gone from kind of macro level to mid-level, and what I was really looking at is the micro level. So the lavender color here. These are some of the ideas that I've put in the presentation. All of these ideas are pretty much all developed into case studies that you can find at the very end of my presentation, as I just don't have time to cover all of them. So I'll see how far I get. My disclaimer, I am not a finance expert, but I am an avid environmental finance investor. I really look at where my money goes. I talk to bankers all the time. Yeah, so conscientious investment. Also, most examples in my presentation are fictitious, but based on similar real world examples. So just very quickly, some of the community-driven financing models that I looked at and that I gave case examples of are, again, at the end of my presentation here. So if you're interested on watershed credits and cooperatives, water user TEEPs, and restoration time banks, you'll find all of those examples at the end. What I kind of wanted to really focus on today, because I think it's very cutting edge and it's very trendy perhaps, and it's very much based towards the youth, I would say, is this whole digital evolution that we've got going on. So in our basin, we're working a lot with artists, and I really see a future for working with artists and creating digital art, and that's going to be bankable, and provide financing for our ecosystem restoration and many other biodiversity restoration and whatnot. But so I was hoping to get into the decentralized autonomous organizations. I'm not sure I'll have time to go into the example I have, but
you
Play to Restore
you can quickly mention if you think is important.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay, thanks. But Play to Restore for sure. Play to Restore is something that, we're always hearing about gamifying kids these days, and not only kids, adults, myself. We're playing, we're using apps, and we created apps in the Atlantic, and this is where I felt we didn't go far enough. So we created these lovely apps where kids could play or share and learn about restoration, but we didn't tack on that financial component to it. So for example, we can utilize blockchain-based games and apps where users earn digital coins. And I actually do this in my daily life. I use an app called WeWard, which gives me these coins. So they're digital coins. I haven't had to apologies. I haven't had to pay for anything for this app. I just look at their advertising. But what happens is I walk, I get points. These points earn me coins. These coins I can invest in projects. And so, for example, I invest in neutering dogs and cats because right now there are quite a few projects you can invest in, but there's nothing in terms of restoration, hence the gap. I think, again, we can fill that gap. So it's a great system because it provides that motivation loop. We as human beings need that motivation, and these apps provide that motivation by doing something good for our health, doing something good for our society, or our culture or our planet, and also making it fun, because I've invited my friends on this app, and then we kind of get a little bit competitive about how much we step and how much we earn and so on and so forth. So anyway, I think this is a really good possibility of earning money for restoration or pollution removal. Decentralized water restoration. Here we have an example of a group that formed. They're called Hydro Guardians, and basically, so their core mission is to empower communities to collectively fund and execute measurable, not only freshwater, but also marine restoration projects worldwide, leveraging the Web3 transparency and efficiency. So the governance of it is token weighted voting. So the community votes based on how many tokens each person holds. One token is worth €1 hydro. And so it's all transparent, as I mentioned. It's you can't alter it in the background. So here, this membership consists of like 750 members. They're across 40 countries. They're united just by their passion for water conservation. And their contributions are really primarily micro donations made in stable coins. So via these decentralized autonomous organizations and decentralized apps. So as you can see, their average contribution is between 15 and 25 euros per month. They pull together 12,000 euros on a monthly basis, and total funds distributed have been 75,000 euros to date across 15 projects. Now, as I mentioned, they have a voting system, so they get together and the members vote. And in order to go forward with a project, they need at least a 60% yes vote for the project. So here, for example, in Norway, I won't try and pronounce the name of the lake. This is an actual lake in Norway. Let's say they've contributed 4,000 for bioaugmentation, so to counter the problem of algae blooms. In the Alna River, which also gives into the Oslo Fjord, they're also giving here money to plant native tree plantings so that it helps restore the riparian zones and helps with that runoff and eutrophication issues and whatnot, as well as the wetland rehabilitation. Here you have another example of a project that was voted. So so these smart contracts, the approved projects are held in multi-signature smart contracts and released in tranches. So again, always contingent on verified progress. And that verified progress can be in all sorts of ways, boots on the ground, going to the sites to see how the trees are growing, for example. If the algae bloom is decreasing, it can be through drones. I mean, the list is long of how that monitoring can take place. And that often does take place through partnerships with like universities or whatnot. So maybe I won't go into too much detail, but this is explaining how the funds are trickled out to these various projects. So it's not all the money is given at once, just again, it's to de-risk and make sure that things are running smoothly. And then basically all of the outcomes and impacts are tracked. So here you have examples of what has happened for the lake, the river, and the creek. And the success rate that they've had. So, and this could also provide even further like carbon and biodiversity credits that could give these community members financial benefit that they could sell on, or companies too can get involved in this. So sorry, I ran through that very quickly. I'm way out of time, but another thing I wanted to talk about is tourism. We did set up a tourism company in Norway to harvest urchins. I think people were paying 100 euros to go out in one day to harvest urchins. The meaty part of the urchins was being sold to restaurants, so an added income there. And then also we were brainstorming around the exoskeleton. What could we do with that? And we were, I've been in touch with some reef, creators. And they are quite interested in using that material to create reefs to go and put out in the marine. Another thing that I've been, kind of scratching my head about, and I think there's real possibility to promote, is this corporate matching and payroll deductions. So having an employee match program where, so like an employee would donate a certain amount of funds to a kelp restoration, and the impact would be doubled because the company would provide match funding, for example. There's three examples, and perhaps, well, let's just go maybe to the Blue Horizons Bank, which empowers its employees to make a difference by allowing them to dedicate a percentage of their annual bonus or set up monthly payroll deductions for kelp conservation. So the bank in this case would provide also an additional 10 euros for every 100 donated by the employees. I mean, as an example, it could be less, could be just €1, but then you get a sizable contribution just in the first year, and then you can get some measurable outcomes. And this is, like we've mentioned before, it is about metrics. You have to prove that it's going to work. Other areas I'd really like us to think more about is the insurance sector. Risk reduction valuation. I really think that we should push for lower premiums for communities and companies getting involved in such projects like I've mentioned. Investing, so they're investing in natural infrastructures like reef, wetland, and kelp restoration. They should have lower premiums. And two, for policy and regulation opportunities, tax incentives too. I mean, I think projects like this, for individuals and communities, they should be getting deductions or credits, for this marine and freshwater restoration investments for private individuals. So, I mean, they should be getting tax incentives in what they're doing. So the bottom line is, what I'm trying to say is, although governments play a really important role and private banks play a really important role, I feel like us as the people on Earth, we're so numerous, we're all over the place. And if each one of us took a small action, we could have a huge major impact. And I also want to see the democratization of restoration finance happening. So this really provides community ownership, in doing this. It really also utilizes local expertise on the ground. So traditional knowledge. It also uses important things like rituals, myths, storytelling that is also crucial to science and to what we're trying to achieve. It helps to scale up impact as well. So it might be little small projects here and there of, like I said, maybe 100,000. But if you're doing that across a whole seascape area of like the whole coast of Portugal, well, that adds up quite quickly. And it really provides us financial autonomy. We are more than in control of our precious money, and we want to see where it goes to and the impacts it has, and then get the benefits directly into our pockets rather than maybe mediators. So this is me. But as I said, please, I have provided this presentation. All of my examples written out are follow here. So please, if you're interested,
Thanks.
have a read through that, and I hope it helps. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Valerie. It's been quite a ride, but I think fascinating one, and also I think opens a whole view on the role of younger people. I mean, I know that, and we know that, there's a growingly network of very engaged and active young ambassadors that are mobilized across the sea basin, and really this could be a way to tap them in. I was immediately thinking of kind of apps hackathon on certain things with young people from the young ambassador network that could either be sea basin or cross sea basin. So I think we can do a lot on that if we think collectively, and also this is where really comes out the engagement of the community, and it's also a good link to the next discussion with Laura from Social Fair that comes really from a different angle in a sense, and also maybe a different expertise, because it's really more coming through urban innovation, social innovation. But I think we see that as a convergence now, and maybe really that a lot of things that are happening in other sectors been, for whatever reason, not acknowledged enough in the ocean. And so maybe I leave the floor to Laura for this last ambitious view and walk, and I like the seascape, by the way, metaphor rather than landscape. So we see Laura's expertise in that, and then we can have a bit of a discussion around the comments of Stefano, and we open the floor to the public. So please, Laura, floor is yours, and thanks a lot again, Valerie.
Thank you, Matteo. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for letting me join this ride, as you mentioned,
Yes.
as you call it. I actually ride it. Thank you, Valerie. I mean, I'm very much in line with what Valerie presented, and I try to share my presentation in a moment, which I don't see. Maybe Andrea, you can help me.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
maybe
course. With me,
she should be able to share.
I cannot. It doesn't allow me to share. I'm sorry.
Do we have that presentation, or can you share
yes,
it by
it's
Yeah.
a PDF, right? Okay.
Maybe we can share ourselves, and then you can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. And of course, you have to manage that. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's okay. Thanks a
it's
lot. You can
okay.
just say
So,
next, and we move on.
Laura Restano. I'm the president of Social Fair, the Center for Social Innovation. And as you mentioned, Matteo, maybe I would like just to share some thoughts and experiences that come from a social innovation background. And the mainly question I would like to share is, I mean, the observation starts from nature-based solutions and eco-social projects, but generally speaking, impact actions are mainly community born, are mainly community designed. Why aren't they mainly community funded? And what does it imply to be a community funded project or initiative or an innovation? That doesn't mean that we have to find in ourselves all resources within the community, but we have also to look within the community and look at the community as entrepreneurs. And this is what we are not seeing yet. although there are experiences that are going in that direction. If you can share the next slide, thank you. So what I would like just to give as a spin is that impact investing is more and more becoming systemic investing for social change. So what we are seeing is that communities as new entrepreneurs attract or need a new approach in investing, which of course as patient capital is oriented to impact solution, to innovation that counts for the people, for the environment, for the planet, for the communities, but it requires a systemic view. Yes, the next slide, please. So you can skip that and we can go on with the next slide so that we go directly, next one, to the few cases. Just a few cases that are taken from our social innovation background. As I said, the Center for Social Innovation and Impact Accelerator, and I also chaired the connected impact investing fund that is called Social First Seed. The next slide, please. Humus is a platform that was born in Italy to tackle the issue of migrant fragmented jobs, underpaid jobs, most of the time with no legal contracts. So the community of agricultural entrepreneurs came together and devised and designed a solution in which they could actually provide an overall share contract to each and every seasonal worker, as if they were hired by only one entrepreneur, while instead it was a community of entrepreneurs hiring them. And to do so, they devised a digital platform that put together their non-financial resources first, so a contract, to do then to go then to the financial, or better, impact investing way. And in that way, they were able to attract investors, resources, and they were able to scale up so that now Humus is one of the platforms that the Italian Ministry for Agriculture uses to legalize and also coordinate seasonal workers, mainly migrants. The next slide, please. Calata is a project, is a social enterprise that actually was born to untap to tap actually into the untapped resources of minor cultural heritage, which are mainly in areas, peripheral areas, a private cultural heritage that is not open to the public, while revitalizing and providing access to this cultural heritage. Communities were involved in identifying the cultural heritage, in setting up specific tools within the heritage, in becoming even, I would say, guides for the local tourists, and in opening up additional services for the communities in that specific respect. The company was started by a solo entrepreneur and then was funded with his own, I would say, financial resources, and then was able to attract impact investment, and now is scaling up all over Italy. But more of that is that what's happening is that other communities are becoming part of this endeavor, reporting on new areas where actually this kind of model can be scaled. So communities are now becoming, I would say, the designers of new tools, of new elements that can actually attract new local investments. The next one, please. And of course, you may have heard about Farm Cultural Park. It was an initiative that actually was started in south of Italy, in Sicily, in Favara, a very peripheral area, to regenerate a distressed area, and was started by a solo entrepreneur. Again, little by little, community of artists joined in and were able to attract different and systemic investment that made the whole community now become a park of activities, of mainly artistic activities, but mainly financial also sustainability via this systemic approach to the investment, public funding, private funding, investors, impact investors, European grants, and so on. Well, the next one, please. You have heard probably about Fondazione di Messina. That was, again, an initiative that was started by an individual that brought together for the maritime, I would say, with a maritime scenario that is surrounded that surrounds Messina, I would say a collective challenge. How to restore, how to regenerate, how to expand the sustainability in a wide array of activities that are linked to the Mediterranean area in around Messina. Again, a solo starter, and then community join in. Now it's like a Fondazione Comunità is a community foundation. So it's a legal entity that allows the community to participate, to be the stakeholder, to be the manager, to be also the fundraisers and the manager of the funds in the direction of community-led projects. What is all that about? It is about a community taking leadership, not only leadership in terms of project design, but also leadership in terms of community funding. And that links to the systemic approach that we also as investor, and I'm also wearing an investor hat in my position as an investor for social affairs seed, we need more and more to support communities so that also impact investors shift from investing in teams to investing in communities, mainly when we look at wide impact or scaled wide projects. The next slide, please. So we believe that this brave community of stakeholders should also try to become really what we call living labs of funding, of new funding for community born and design projects. And that, of course, is an experimentation that has to bring together and go beyond the private and public dichotomy and the systemic approach that is not linear. Again, as of now, we are seeing a linear approach. So we start with grant. It's typical also of the startups challenge. We start with a grant, family, fools, and friends funding, and then we go on trying to get money for the sustainability of the action. But more and more, we need to design their project, the community project, and the funding model in a systemic way, presenting the community as a community of founders, but also a community of funders and investors. Please, the next slide. So community-driven funding is this practice of raising capital from within, but also through the community. So the community raises capital. The community is the entrepreneur. And of course, there are traditional ways of doing that: crowdfunding, microfinance, community investment funds. I told you about the so-called community foundations, which are spreading more and more in Italy, but also this new approach of systemic fund investing. The next slide, please. Systemic investing has a very specific, I would say, way or spin because it's adding financial and eco-social value together. It's bringing that together, but as especially two leverage points, I would say two edges that are important to consider while designing the project and the project also for funding. Leveraging points, there are in a system more leveraging points than in a single action or in a single project. And that may bring together more synergic investments. So if we go to the slide, please, we go, I mean, this is the spectrum, the well-known spectrum of impact economy. We talk and we heard about impact investing, patient capital, but systemic investing is actually going into this spectrum, ranging from responsible to impact-driven actors and investors and actions, and of course, starting or maybe also looking at philanthropy as a part of a quasi-equity or quasi initial granting for testing or piloting of the action. What I'm saying is that we are still, and that is also the challenge we as investors and as designers of social innovation are facing, we are seeing that still as a linear process, while the true challenge is to design the project, to design the action, to design the innovation in a systemic way with multiple leverage points that are also the, I would say, leverage points towards resources and financial attraction. Next, please. That also from an investor's point of view, and I repeat what Valerie has already stated, makes the projects in which we invest more robust because there is local ownership. There are tailored solutions that may scale wide and scale deep. Sustainability is enhanced, and especially there is increased transparency and accountability that can be supported also via technology and digital tools. Next, please. But the other, I would say, challenges are also, if I can close with this points, that we have also to invest not only financially, but in terms of knowledge and acceleration in the research of eco-social value, in science for intentional innovation, so something that goes beyond the dichotomy of technology and social innovation, that actually tackles the innovation as an ex-ante, I would say, theory of change that goes through the project deployment in order to reach our outcomes. And then, of course, the designers of social impact and investors for social progress. When we invest in community, we're actually investing in social progress, and that for sure, we have seen that happening already in our portfolio, brings back maybe slower returns, but I would say more or less market standard returns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura. Indeed, a very nice extra point to all the different pieces of the puzzle so far. I see Stefano nodding. The hits is a bit on you, Stefano, but I think to wrap up this, so we, and thanks a lot, everyone, really, I think also colleagues and also I think the challenges put by Mauro, if I may, Mauro, almost like an action plan, right? So if I hear all of what we're saying, so we have a plan to things that are missing and needs to be done to address the financial needs to achieve the mission. We see that plans incorporate kind of small scale pre-seed investment, and we see that Lavinia, for example, Faros is doing that. We also see that plans imply a better understanding from the financial point of view of the return of investment and like try to digest in a more understandable taxonomy the potential of investing in the sea, and Christina has elaborated on that. But then also I think that there's need for intermediation and support for having access to grants per se, that this is a great example of the Blue Seeds and really helping those people to intermediate and keep a dialogue, not just having a single investment, but really having a process. And in doing so, I think there's a number of innovative but already existing, so in a sense consolidated, right, approach that's been proposed by Valerie, and these are really bringing in a broader element of youth and local society, which is really the link to what Laura says, in the sense that it's a big opportunity of making social ownership of local, I mean, coastal communities. There's a big now discussion on coastal community as part of the Ocean Pact. And to me, really what we're saying is like coastal community taking ownership of their own landscape, but also in doing that, you have social return per se, you have territorial return, which brings me to Stefano, right? And the key gap that Mauro mentioned that I haven't said so far is this policy framework. And in a sense, I think, Stefano, the role of Emilia-Romagna at the regional level in that respect is quite pioneering. I don't think it's in your presentation, so I can mention a little bit, but feel free to build it up that now recently the region in Emilia-Romagna really has restructured the department in a way that they can really coordinate to have a plan on the approach for a sustainable blue economy, including also the preservation of ecosystem and nature. And now you're launching ways to understand, to hear from the territory solution, kind of in line with what Laura was saying. I mean, of course, you're in an earlier stage of that, but it's interesting to see your reflections, Stefan, maybe certainly presenting your experience from that angle. And then maybe we can have an open discussion amongst us if we still have time and open to the solution if they have a specific question. But thank you all very much. And Stefano, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm sharing my screen.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Matteo, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure, and also following all the presentation and also your resume that really introduced my experience. I would like to share with you my experience, our experience that we had at the Emilia-Romagna region, in particular on from the policy point of view that that is going to be open to a new approach. No, so that this is a process that started a few years ago, and now we are running in the phase of questioning about do our traditional innovation scheme, financial innovation scheme, are adequate or are not adequate, or we need to think to new financial tools, new approach on financing innovation. So this is where we are now. But in order to better introduce our experience, I would like to show the point from which we started. So our region, Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, is quite well-developed region, well-positioned in Europe. It's the European Innovation Scoreboard pointed as Emilia-Romagna in a strong innovator. So we are well-positioned in Italy and also quite well in Europe. We started our innovation policy 20 years ago. So this innovation ecosystem is the result of 20 years of innovation policies implementation at regional level. So we have 82 industrial research laboratories, 14 innovation center, technopoles, incubator, and blah, blah, blah. And this was a long process, doing step by step to build this quite complex. I try to resume in one slide, but it's you can see that it's quite complex. And also the last element was in order to facilitate better the impact of our laboratory, industrial laboratories. We also promoted the creation of clusters. So we have quite more than 9 clusters on try to put together industry and research laboratories. So this is our ecosystem, but since last programming period, ERDF fund programming period, we approach to a new innovation policy approach. We are following this mission-oriented policy, challenge-based. So our smart specialization strategy that we are having now, 21-27, started this process on focusing our strategy, our policy, innovation approach more on mission and challenges. So from a traditional approach of innovation based on the pillar of economic of our specialization system like mechanic, motor valley, we got a very strong motor valley agri-food system. We think that was not more sufficient. No, we need to have in order to have a really impact at our local level, we should think about mission and challenges. So that's why we open to our smart specialization strategy in 14 mission. One of those is the blue economy. I'm topic lead on the blue economy mission, and so we have this new strategic vision. So what we did in the last few years is to create a community. So that also it was really important. Within our ecosystem of innovation, we try to create a new community, bringing different aspect of the having the same objective. For instance, a blue economy is a cross-cutting issue, so we need to have different sectors like tourism, like offshore industry, of fishery and aquaculture sector. So, and that was a new approach. So the first step was to create a new local innovation community and identification of common challenges. And we did this thanks to this European project, the Blue Ecosystem Interact project. And we identified something like almost 40 expression of interest, very similar to approach that that Marta presented before, but with our focus was, of course, really more on our local territory. Where we are now, we collected the innovation solution. Now we are working with the applicants to accelerate this and helping also the internationalization. And so we are looking also to the financing mechanism. The traditional innovation approach with the existing financial mechanism, we started to see that maybe are not really suitable for this new approach, which is really a community-based approach. So this new four helix approach has got a focus on environmental impact, the civil society involvement, so the community level. It's not necessary focus on innovation. No? This is also a new element, no? Because we were very based on technology, innovation. Maybe the innovation here is the application on new model. No? So it's not the traditional way of we intended before about innovation. And another aspect is low economic returns. So we have seen some experience in which the civil, the community involvement, we are not having economic return in the medium and the short term, but in the long term. So, as I said, there is a need for new or adaptation, because we have seen that there are existing financial tools maybe that has not been really tested and implemented in the blue economy, sustainable blue economy sector. So, so we are really ready to collaborate and also to have to be inspired. And today, for me, was really a rich moment for inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Stefan, and well done. I think really collectively, this is kind of groundbreaking territories. No, each of you point at some direction, which is very, very relevant and very new. And in a way, what you present, Stefano, fits very well with the systemic investment approach described by Laura and all the rest. So try to really have a plan and a general approach so that each investment is not just a single drop in the water, right? But the water itself, if I can use that abuse metaphor. Maybe before having a last quick discussion between us, of course, the ambition here is we try to keep this network and reflection, and we need to put it in practice. No? So this is a masterclass as part of what we're asked to do, but I think for us it's much more, it's really a starting point, picking brains and experience of a number of important things. But we also have some of our solution online. So maybe I don't know if some of the participants online want to raise their hand and ask some question or put comments, and then maybe we can have a final wrap up of discussion. We know that people tend to be a bit shy, understandably so, online. Feel free, any colleagues online, to raise a question, raise your hand. You can also put some comments in the chat and we can read it later. We see this discussion on the relation between fisheries and tourism. And so maybe, as people seem to still be quiet, we can have a final wrap up between us, more in the kind of what's next, you know, to me is the main question. And I don't know, maybe quickly to all of you, Mauro, I mean, what do you think? I think a lot of this, I mean, everything said today fits well with the point you made. And also, what would be for you the next step? How do you see this going, and what's your suggestion, or what, you know, which thing solicited your reflection really open?
Yeah, no, thank you, Matteo. It was I echo the colleagues saying that it was really inspiring, and it's been a while. We in our work we started focusing more and more on nature-based solutions and community work at the smaller scale. But it's very interesting to see what else is happening, right, beyond this project. So this is it was particularly useful. I think and I know that we discussed this in the past. Of course, having a community, like, I mean, to discuss these issues more regularly, you know, openly, and with this collaboration kind of spirit, I think that would really help. And right now, this community is it's a bit scattered. This is my opinion. Like, I mean, as a first step, I would say it's really useful to get together to do these exchanges and to learn from each other. I immediately thought of collaboration opportunities, synergies. You know, this is what emerged very clearly, and but really inspiring. Like, I mean, the work of everyone, really every single presentation had was extremely inspiring. And then, you know, this and then I'm done. But you know, getting together as a community means that we can also have a single voice towards, you know, institutional representatives to sort of inform policies and to influence policies, to really stimulate you know, more funding, going towards blended finance mechanisms, supporting small-scale enterprises and community-based enterprises and nature-based solutions. So this is the way forward, right? Acting with a single voice. Over. Thanks.
No, thanks to you, Mauro. And yeah, indeed, I mean, the ambition I think now is that we want to really grow this thing and make it more concrete. And I mean, there will be hopefully follow up also next year. We need to see, but certainly one way or another, this is really a discussion that should go on in a practical manner. Maybe picking brain very quickly. So Lavinia, from your point of view, yeah, how do you see this discussion and from your perspective?
Thank you. I think it was very useful to know that we are in some ways from different perspectives, but noticing the same probably gaps or obstacles that we are all struggling with. I think it would be interesting also to see if our perspective is something that is also shared in first person from the startups. So it would be interesting to see actually if maybe we are focusing on the points, or maybe there's also something that we are missing in this discussion.
Yeah, indeed. And I again invite our colleagues to comment on the chat or let us know later on, because we really want to move on with them as well. And yeah, Christina, maybe from your perspective in eastern side of Mediterranean, we know there might be a sea basin discussion there, so it's an important area.
Hopefully, we've been pushing a lot, and we have been trying also to create a Greek ecosystem in the blue economy, because over different capacities. Because what we see is that especially in Greece and Cyprus, the blue economy is a huge driver. Yet there's no vision like in Portugal from the government, or there's not a concrete ecosystem. So we are actually launching an accelerator on the blue economy with a Hellenic Marine Research Center. We have 15 applications so far, which is very hopeful. So I believe that we should be getting together more often to build the community in the Mediterranean. We have the same struggles, the same obstacles. We're different players, but synergies are the way forward, especially for raising awareness among investors, because all the investors in the blue economy are more or less, well, we know them, right? But they always complain. They're always complaining about lack of entity startups, projects for them to invest in. So building the community and building also the startups and the projects that are bankable is very important to move this forward. And there will be a lot of financing from the EU Ocean Pact. The community and the ecosystem has to be ready to receive that and make impactful projects and change the mentality around the blue economy, how it's not risky.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think we also, try to build this platform for really then engaging back with investors and bring them a bit more beyond their comfort zone, if I may, because that. And okay, no, fantastic. And yeah, Camille, I mean, you've seen a lot of other maybe areas where intermediators can help local actors and maybe, kicking off different type of funds and tools. What's your take?
I'm really glad we were able to see so many solutions today, including very innovative, coming from technology and apps, and also very simple old solutions from the European funding. I think the next question for the project holders, the company in this panel, are: what type of finance do I need? What is adapted to my needs? Do I need small grants? Do I need big grants and multi-annual funding from Europe? Do I need debt that I need to reimburse in a few years, or do I need to add equity to my company? This is something that would be the next step to me. And also, just a thought, I think that bringing the impact investors or the bankers to visit solutions is something that is missing also from them. We really don't speak the same language. Scientists, bankers, de-risk investments, TRLs, these are all names that they don't mean the same thing for everyone. So just be able to visit solutions would be a great step.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you trigger, and we're getting towards the end, but I think we can take a couple of minutes more if you don't mind to close this. But before going to Valerie, I mean, we've been discussing, of course, fostering this platform and engagement is also the role of the CSA, would be a bit more and more so in the future. When discussing with the Atlantic CSA, has also pop up a case of a Canadian, not really a company, but okay, yeah, a brand, and they which is very interesting, and they ask investors and accelerator to invest their time rather than money, and bring them in social discussion, really large social discussion with enterprise, with like local actors, and they create a sense of community between the different parties, which I think is even maybe a step further in what we're saying, not just visiting the solution, but finding this concept of investing time and relations. I mean, after all this, IT craze, we're still biological beings, human, creature, and we need interaction, and this is our added value as people. And I think this is something that we can really do more. So bringing physically investors, accelerators, sharing their time together, creating bonds. It's also a bit of a challenge these days, and I think creating bonds across community is really cool. So Valerie, what do you think? I mean, CSA is, of course, has a mandate for that. Hopefully there will be more, but what's your take?
Yes, we thankfully do have a mandate for that, and we have new projects starting. One called the Blue Action AA, which will have 9 million euros to give out, and that's only one basin, or my 2 basins. So we have that across the other seas. So that's going to be 36 million euros to be available for community-led action. So I really see that positively as having quite a significant impact. I think my takeaways, though, are, and maybe they're a little bit going to be radical, but yes, I mean, of course, I'm all in favor for engaging with investors and development banks and governments. Absolutely, we need to. We must continue. But I think I have some unknowns with that. Let's say, in the sense that I'm very much future focused, and obviously our future to a certain extent is uncertain. Not to be a downer, but with climate change and with food resource security looming, and a lot of geopolitical shifting sands. I personally don't want to rely too much on my governments and big investors. I was just on a panel yesterday with my government, Portuguese government, EEA people, and they said they have too much. They're overburdened. They can't keep up. They're constantly trying to run to the next target and goal. Signposts are always changing. And I get it. Totally understand where they're coming from, but hence why I would rather try and find ways to be part of a solution, at least for my local community or my national community. And I'm working not only on a national level, but also at a regional level. The Atlantic International Research Center works as a kind of regional hub. And so my focus is really going to be on building that trust and legitimacy at the community level. Also seeing that benefit and social benefits go back to the people and small SMEs, and that we build synaptic community neural frameworks across Europe, so that we are connected up, talking, engaging, and sharing our ideas, so that we can become stronger also together. So yeah, I think that's what I'm really focused on. Is I want to see power back to the people and benefits back to the people. Thanks.
Thanks, Valerie. I mean, indeed, this sense of being overwhelmed, I think, is shared commonly. And I was chatting about it with some mission colleague, which I'm not saying, and certainly, there's too much strategies and things, but we need to go back to the real. And hopefully, this idea of community would help really bringing back to the focus on the basic, really. But we share that. And Laura, maybe your final view, and also looking at the experience of Emilia-Romagna, and then we can close, I guess.
Yes, thank you for this inspiring session. My question, I mean, I go away with one question to myself. What do community need more? I mean, how can we reinforce communities? How can community be reinforced or strengthened, not only in their ability to design projects, but also in their knowledge to be, I wouldn't say self-sufficient, but merely independent. And that is one thing. The other thing is we need more exposure, more knowledge that goes to the investors, not only from the investors, the usual scouting for solutions where to invest, but also exposure and knowledge on what is going on the results, on the evidence that maritime solutions, innovative solutions have brought about. So I think little knowledge is still, little evidence is still to be not shared. And on the other side, still one main thing that comes again at all levels of social innovation is representation. Are communities represented at decision-making tables? And what shall we do, or what shall communities do in order to reinforce their position and their voice?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I think it's a good wrap up of this. And I mean, in a sense, to me, it's also what community need is to put at the core of this process. And I mean, we hear a lot and we talk a lot about solutions and funds and investors and mechanism, but you know, the people and the reality of the community should be put there. And I mean, hopefully, this rhetoric that is emerging will lead somewhere. But I think we all need to provide inputs to that. So thanks a lot all. I think a lot of input for reflection, and but also a lot of good experiences and hopefully lessons for our audience today. But also we will publish this recording, so it will be more broadly spread out, and we can also think of how to use some of these insights for lobbying and for moving ahead in this respect. So yeah, thanks all. I don't know, maybe I go back to Irene and Javier if you want to say something, and then we really need to close. But unless there's any urgent comments from all of you, I don't know if Stefano, you want to say a last word or two, and then we close back.
Just a few words. From my experience, what we did at local level, in a way, surprised me, because the community, working at community level and create a common space for debate and discuss about the challenges, about solutions. When I started, I thought nobody will come, no, because it's a little bit a new approach. But at the end, all the community reply, they participate, and they are willing to work together in order to develop new solutions. And this was a really important message. The negative side is that we are not, as public administration, at the moment, we are not ready to modify our financing scheme. We are not ready at the moment to give a solution to this new give financial solution to these new needs. So this is why I think we are thinking about hybridization of public and private mechanism. So I think we are really need to work on that and try to reply as soon as possible.
Thanks. It's indeed a global experience, and in a way, it's important that we stay connected. But yeah, Irene and Javier, I don't know if you want to wrap up this, and thank you very much, everyone, really.
Yes, aware of time, I will be very quick. I just wanted to extend an open invitation to everyone to our final event in Rimini, Italy, which will take place from the 4th to the 7th of November, in the context of a wider fair, entrepreneurial fair, in Ecomondo. So yes, this is for you to note. We will post in the chat the link to register if you're interested, along with the links for the agendas and everything that we've lined up there. Our event will have a lot to do with mobilizing the community that is already fairly established, both from the side of the solution providers, but also those who may want to implement the solutions. And we will have some space for pitching and showcasing these solutions to relevant investors. So I was really compelled by everything we heard today. Linking back to our initial presentation, we started with a bit of an overview of this mission-oriented funding concept, which in a way is more traditional, if we may, as it looks as the public and the private sector kind of in a bit of silos, no? And it looks as at the public sector like in a way entrepreneurial state mindset, whereas the concepts we've heard later on today are much more holistic. They put the communities at the center, and I think this in a way is really at the heart of what the mission is intending to do. So I think that collectively this merits a reflection on how to move forward, how to actually put together the next steps that we need to create this systemic investing. That was a concept that was really compelling to me. So yeah, let's try to reflect, digest all of we heard today, and reconvene perhaps at this final event with some roadmap for actually putting this in practice. So yeah, that's it. And also I wanted to remind everyone that in the context of these services that we're providing to the solutions, we're organizing a second masterclass, which this time will focus on innovative procurement. So yeah, you're also invited to join if you're interested, of course. And yeah, we look forward to see you there. Save the date, please. It's November 18th from 11 to 1 p.m.
Thanks. And as discussed, is intended not to be a separate tool, right? But it's another tool in the box of this synergetic approach to coastal support.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think that's it from our side, right? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thanks to